Hard Hat's all about showing up to play hard, doing what it takes to win.
If you want to cement legacy, win another.
He's your third center.
You don't want to pump him up too much, but it's hard not to.
This is maybe the most I've ever agreed with you.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into an emergency live Garden Report / Big Three podcast crossover with Sherrod Blakely and a rare guest on the Garden Report, Gary Washburn, jumping in here. And he needed an outlet to get his thoughts out to the world and tell people what he thinks of this trade, which honestly not only was one of the most shocking trades in any sport I can remember in my lifetime, but just how it happened at night on a Saturday night when the entire world was like, yeah, this is a joke, right? Like, when
after the Lakers game.
We all thought we were getting punked.
Everybody thought they were absolutely getting punked. So we're going to get all sorts of reaction, see if there's any new developing opinions, new pieces of information trickling out a little bit today, but nothing that quite can make sense of this deal. And you see it on the screen right now. The Mavericks trade a generational talent, albeit one with some flaws and some concerns,
some baggage,
Luka Doncic, and some other stuff to the Lakers for Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and a first-round pick 2029. Before we get started, we'll tell you quickly that this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code CLNS. Get 50 instantly when you play 5. That's code CLNS. Get 50 instantly when you play 5. We also want to let you know that the show is brought to you by Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download that app. Create an account. Use code CLNS. $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. What time is it? Game Time. Now, let's get back to the story and what in the wide world of sports is going on here. We'll start with Gary Washburn because he doesn't often get a chance to share his opinion with us on the Garden Report. And Gary, just your initial reaction and where you are with it now today after letting it marinate for a little bit.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it, to be honest. I went to bed early before the Laker game ended, and Sherrod will love this. I got up in the morning to check the final score of Syracuse-Cal basketball.
Yeah.
Because Cal was down 17 at halftime, and I was like, Christ, they're just another clunker. And then I looked and saw the alerts for the trade, and I thought I was dreaming. I thought, like, what's going on? Like, what? Wait a minute. I know I'm never going to go to sleep early on a Saturday night again. I know that. And I'm stunned, shocked, like everybody else. This whole thing, well, Luka's not in shape. And, man, you don't trade a generational talent other than for another generational talent. You don't trade Luka unless you're getting SGA, Tatum, Wemby back. Anthony Davis, you're talking about a guy who, like, misses games. Like, there's a reason why he's nicknamed Street Clothes. So to me, I'm just stunned. Obviously, they had been fed up with Luka, maybe in his lack of conditioning. To me, I always think Luka is not in the greatest of shape, but there's just certain athletes, guys, that they're just never going to be in the great. Jokic is never going to be cut. You know, like there's just certain guys who just make it work. Yeah, like, right. And so to me, I just put Luka in that category where all these calf injuries are a byproduct of not being in great shape. I mean, the guy played for Slovenia in the Olympics a couple years ago. He played off, like, I don't know. It just seems really a drastic move to say, no, we won't get you like a mandated personal trainer and a chef. We're just going to trade you for a about to be 32-year-old guy who has a history of missing a lot of games. And we're going to go forward and try to win a chip. Maybe the way the Mavericks played without Luka over the last, beating Oklahoma City 3 times without Luka, maybe that was part of what tipped them off. And, but now you're relying, John, and you'll love, on Kyrie and Anthony Davis. My goodness.
The dream is realized. They finally got together.
This was 2016. I'm in. But 2025, I don't know.
That is funny.
Danny,
Now.
it's funny that Danny had a hand in bringing Kyrie and AD together in some capacity because he couldn't get it done here, and it happened. Sherrod, Bobby, and again, get your initial reactions here, but I just want to add to what Gary said. Right, out of shape people can get in shape. 25-year-olds, they're not beyond your salvation as far as that's concerned. And yeah, it's a frustrating thing. You see the, fat clause stipulations in big contracts. You saw Kyler Murray in the NFL he has to do his homework clause in his contract. You can figure out concerns if you want to address them. But to me, this screams of an owner trade, not a GM trade. I don't think that this I know the GM's out in front of it saying the basketball reasons behind it, but this screams to me of an owner saying, I don't want to pay this slob. I don't like it. It's $350 and it's new ownership there in Dallas. And again, I don't know, but I could see this being hey guys, get it done. But I also don't want to get worse. We're not in rebuild mode. Get it done and do something you can. And then this happens. So not only is it perplexing, you would trade Luka, period. But to trade him for what they traded him for, which again, Anthony Davis is nice and a top 10-ish, top 12, 15 player, but he's 32 and he's a big and he doesn't want to play inside as much. And you could see his career transitioning into more of a jump shooter and a guy who doesn't want. How long is he going to be Anthony Davis? Not much longer. And Luka's not 26 years old yet. So again, not only the trade, but the return to me is stunning.
Two things that bother me about this deal from the Dallas perspective. First and foremost, to just kind of piggyback off Gary said earlier, you're talking about a generational talent. You don't trade those type of players unless you're getting a similar player in terms of impact or a bunch of shots at getting a generational talent. In other words, you got to get at least 3 or 4 first-round picks to me for this to even be a possible reality if you're Dallas. But the other point, John, that I think you touched on, and I think there is some of this. I think that what we're seeing now is Dallas being proactive and not having Jimmy Butler 2.0 happen to them, where you've got a player who's really good but doesn't play a ton of games, but they want to get paid as if they play 82 games every year. And so they're going to be eligible for a major, major payday. And you got to ask yourself, are they worth it? And are you going to get basically enough return on that type of investment? And there's clear concerns that wasn't going to happen with Luka. So you cut your losses. You try to get what you can while you can. But I still think Dallas should have been able to get more than just Anthony Davis and a first-round pick. You should have been able to get at least 2 or 3 picks. I mean, damn. Look what Utah got for freaking Rudy Gobert. You're trying to tell me that you can't get multiple first-round picks out of the Lakers? Dallas, to me, again, it screamed as if they were desperate when they didn't have to be desperate for them to get this deal.
Yeah, I agree with you guys that you can't trade Luka, and that's a bad decision. But if you do decide you're not going to be in the Luka business, if you do decide we're moving on from this guy, we don't like where his health's trending, we don't like where his weight is trending, and just his overall commitment to this thing. And there were some comments we'll get into from Nico Harrison about a tumultuous summer being ahead, which I don't understand what he was referring to, but he did see some problems coming on the Luka front, whether it was the money, whether it was the contract, ownership, maybe, John, you mentioned that. I don't agree with moving on from Luka. But if they're saying we don't want to roll with this guy anymore, we don't believe in him, we don't trust that he's going to age well, all that kind of stuff, I do actually like Anthony Davis as a return. I don't really care about picks, John. You know that. If you get 2 or 3 more picks, I don't know if people like this deal better. But to me, you're bringing in Anthony Davis in place of Luka. You have a solidified front court. You have a defense that's probably going to be 2 or 3 times as good now with Davis compared to Luka. And this is still a guy that can get you 25, 30 points when he's rolling. And I know he's had injury issues in the past. I know he's about to turn 32, but he played most of last season. He's played most of this season. The problem in my mind is that it shortens your window if Luka is going to continue to evolve and grow into one of the best players in the league, if not the best player in the league. That's where you're really.
He's already there. He's been there.
Yeah,
He's been there. He's been there like 10 minutes after he entered the league. I mean, he's been a top 5 player almost from the moment he stepped on a court. And arguably up until he got hurt this year.
Statistically, yes. I do worry about the defense though, John. And we saw it in the finals. He cannot defend at a commensurate level that's going to win a championship. And once he got up against a team that was going to target him and go at him every single time, he looked helpless in that series. I mean, remember what we were saying after game 3? So that's where I think some of your concerns start if you're Dallas. Obviously, it's a money thing too, and the new cap and all of that leads to some trades. We already saw it with Karl Anthony Towns. Everyone wondered what they were doing at the time, and it didn't look good. So this might go in that direction. And Luka goes on to look even better and have an illustrious career in LA. And Davis is at a point in his career where you're like, is he going to start to go downhill over the next couple of years here? But for this year only, they're still a contender. In fact, they might have a better chance to win the championship today than they did yesterday.
So this is the part of basketball reaction and Twitter that's bugging me the most today is the smart basketball people telling me why this actually Dallas might be better. It's not a basketball trade. It's an asset management trade.
You can't trade Luka.
Yep. It's again, I might have a $10 million summer house and don't really need it. I trade it for a nice split level in Brookline, send my kids to good schools. That I spend, a fraction of it on that. Hey, that's more sensible for me. I need that house, but I just gave away a $10 million house for a $2 million house. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, Luka is worth much, 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 much more. So if you're going to trade him, why not shop him? How did this happen? How do they just call the Lakers and maybe, I think it was reported, one other team and say, you guys want Luka? Not even like, it's basically, first of all, whoever speaks first in a negotiation has already lost it. The fact that you're calling the Lakers, letting them know you want out of the Luka business puts you at a disadvantage. The fact that you don't call everybody else or just
they didn't want it to get out, John.
And yes, you do. The Mavericks are open to trading Luka Doncic. Oh, look at the floodgates.
The offers would be insane.
Insane. So that's what's blowing my mind. How in the world? This is a Belichick trade. Belichick doesn't want to be bothered, calls somebody and says, hey, I'm thinking of moving off of this guy. What would you give me? 2nd round pick. That's good enough. Make it so. And everyone's like, wait. You can get much more than that. He's like, I'm fine. That's good enough. And that's what it was. So, I mean, Gary, how has this happened that they basically are only dealing with the Lakers here?
Yeah, it sounded like Nico Harrison had this in mind and had his target player in mind, which was Anthony Davis. Now, to me, as I've said, you don't trade Luka. Like, I'm just trying to get my mind
put your brain there. Yeah.
This whole, like, how not durable he is. His games played since he started. Rookie year 72, second year 61 of the 66 because it was a shortened year. Third year 66 of the 72 because it was a shortened. 65, 66 last year 70, and this year 22 because of the cap. This is not a guy who's missing 30 games a year. This isn't Kawhi Leonard. The guy averaged 34 points a game last year and shot 38% from 3. It ain't the final, and averaged 10 assists. The finals is not his fault. The finals was PJ Washington, Kyrie Irving, and no one else stepped up to help Luka. They didn't have the tools to win the series probably, but Luka got no help. Like, let's be honest. I mean, Luka got no help. And so I'm not blaming the finals on Luka, he was exposed defensively. The Celtics won this series. The Celtics offensively during the finals were not great. They won the series with defense. And the defense on Luka, but look at the guys that were supposed to help Luka out and they didn't. So I'm just trying to figure out why the hell you would shop this guy as opposed to doing, if you want to do something like, I get it, 345 or whatever he was going to get over 5 years, more than Tatum, the highest contract, but he's a generational player. He's an international player. He's popular. His jersey sales is always in the top 2 or 3. Like, you say Luka, how many guys from one name, LeBron, Luka, there's only very few guys that are known by one name and you know who they are. You talk to an average basketball fan and say Luka, they know who you're talking about. For Dallas, you could try to squeeze a title out of this, but you were trading a guy who's not even 26 years old. I don't get it. And you're right. They should have shopped him around if they were going to do that. And they should have gotten one of those Herschel Walker to the Dallas Cowboys, Minnesota Vikings trades. If you guys remember that, look that up, Bobby. Like they should have gotten the 7 for 1.
Ricky Williams, take my whole draft.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
They should if that's what you're going to do. But
the Lakers don't have enough assets. The Lakers don't have enough assets over the next 5 years to complete this trade, let alone what they have in the till right now.
I like the fact that they got Max. I like Max Christie. I think he's going to be a nice prospect. He's not going to be a superstar, but okay, give us that guy, 21-year-old guy who's emerging or whatever. But if you're Nico Harrison, I'm just astounded at the return. I'm astounded why you would. And obviously, it had to be something personal. He's like, I ain't calling that dude. That dude don't want to talk to me, so I ain't call him. Like, at least you give him the respect of going, Luka, this is what's about to happen. Like, to me, I don't know. I think it says a lot about the Mavericks organization. Let's see what, I'm sure Luka's going to love LA. He's going to be a darling. He's going to have a good time. I'm sure there's a Slovenian community in LA more than there is in Texas. Let's be honest. So he'll be comfortable. He'll have restaurants to eat and places to go, and he'll be a star. He'll go to the Grammys and the Oscars and all that. But you
make a movie or two.
Yeah, you do not trade. Like, there's 5 guys: SGA, Tatum, Wemby, maybe Anthony Edwards, and the rights to Cooper Flag. If they got the rights to Cooper Flag, then you're like, hey, okay, all right. Like, you get the number 1 overall pick or something to that effect, where it's like, we just want to start over. Okay, we want to start over with a 20-year-old because we're tired of Luka. Okay, you're starting over with a 32-year-old who's got a history of injuries, who's got a history of not playing hurt, who's currently out with an injury.
Yeah. That's the issue. And here's the comments here from Nico Harrison. I understand why they'd be shocked initially, but I do believe we position ourselves to win now. I think that's where people get a little stuck here in this idea of winning now. This isn't about now. This is about the next 10 years. And that's ultimately the goal, why we're here. It's one of those things where it's my job to make tough decisions, put blah, blah, blah. And again, I don't fully get it. I want to push back on something earlier. And I know, Bobby, we've gotten into these conversations before. It is not saying the defense. I just think that this is a specious argument when people try to point to defense or something like that to poke holes in players. The most transformative players in the league over the last few years are, Luka, Nikola Jokic, Steph Curry. None of them are there because of their defense. I think people sometimes look at it like, well, his offense is a 10 and his defense is a 4, so he's a 7. And it doesn't work that way. Those guys control every aspect of what goes on the floor on the offensive side. Luka is a 14 out of 10 on offense. He does everything. So he's so far above, no offense, guys, everyone get mad in the comments. He's so far above Tatum in terms of what he does for an offense that you can't say, well, Tatum defends. Like, I'm not saying Gary listed him. Tatum's among the type of players you'd need to get in return here. But we have to understand what Luka is on that side of the ball. And that is beyond what most people are, even the best offensive players in the league, even the SGAs and the Tatums who are outstanding. He's on a different planet. So it's not just a straight balance that he can't necessarily play defense. But again, going back to the return, you got to get one of those guys. If it's not for Tatum or SGA straight up, you need multiple, like an Amen Thompson and Jaylen Green and all of their picks. That's the package you get. That type of 2 stars. Look what the Celtics were supposed to do way back when they wanted to get Anthony Davis. What was being talked about? A pick that was going to be a top 2 or 3 potentially, like lottery type of picks going forward and multiple picks. Plus, they wanted Tatum and Brown at the time. That's what and then the Celtics were holding firm on one, and it wasn't enough to get it done. You want 2 up-and-coming stars, or at least one that's already almost there, but not on Luka's level, plus all of the picks. That's what's crazy to me. What did you buy here? A better rest of this year? It's insane.
I can't
And
defend them not shopping
it
him.
doesn't put you
But
over the top. You're still not the best team in the West. I'm not even sure if you're like top 5 in the West. So as far as this deal helping Dallas now, I'm not sure you moved that much closer to being a champion this year than you were before the trade was made. And again, that to me is where this is just a perplexing deal, because I don't think it significantly moves you closer in the present, and it damn sure doesn't help you down the road.
I think it makes you a little better in the present defensively. And I'm going to stick to that, John, because Luka was in a place defensively, not just that he struggled a little bit or that, he could be exposed here or there, that he had limitations. He was just apathetic to that side of the floor. And you look back at some of the final stuff, Gary, and I know I agree with you that it wasn't his fault, but he didn't help them on that end to the point where he's just floating around, not in the right positions, certainly not giving an effort on that end. And that's why, John.
Yeah. Imagine if they did this. JT for Bam. You'd lose your freaking mind, right? JT for Bam in a first. You would lose your mind.
We're talking about the 8th or 9th best player in the league, maybe.
You're talking about a guy who's 32 years old with a history of injuries, and bigs don't age the same way that other players do. So no, you're not. We're not. We're talking about a bad return here. The wrong type of return.
Yeah.
Right. And I can't defend them not shopping him and seeing what's out there. But what else are you going to get in terms of a centerpiece player return? Are you going to get Kevin Durant? Are you going to get Steph Curry? Like, talking about the kind of guys that you would flip for your cornerstone player in return for a new cornerstone player. Like, you're not going to get much better than Anthony Davis.
But that's kind of the point, Bobby. You're never going to know that because you never gave yourself a chance to expose this to the other 29 teams in the league to see if they would be willing.
And I can't understand that. The only thing I can think of is that maybe if you don't end up moving him and it gets out that you're shopping him, all of a sudden that relationship's deteriorated. And I don't know, Gary, I don't know if you read the comments from the GM there, but he had all this talk about, we don't know if we were going to be able to sign him this summer, and he might have opted out or he might have looked to leave. That's the part that I'm struggling with here. Like, did they think he was going to demand a trade?
Gary, are you hearing anything from people?
No, I haven't heard that he's unhappy. I have not heard a word that he's unhappy in Dallas. I have not heard that, we were just down there. We have not heard that, this team feels like, because if you look at it, maybe what encouraged them, as I mentioned earlier, was how well they played at times without Luka. They've beaten Oklahoma City this year 3 times without Luka. So is it a Luka problem? Now, the problem is, pushing back, Bobby, Maxi Kleber was in this trade, so he's one of their better defenders. He's gone, and he also had broken his foot. Derek Lively's out for another 2 to 3 months. So you got Anthony Davis and Daniel Gafford and the great Dwight Powell as your backcourt. Like, that ain't no championship backcourt, man. Like, that's just – I like Gafford. Gafford eats up minutes. He eats up rebounds. He gets to the free throw line. But I mean, that's a thin backcourt unless you bring in somebody else. Now, Dallas is like, hey, we're looking for someone else. Or maybe you flip Max Christie, who's, I think, turns himself into a nice prospect, into someone else. But I don't think this year, because of injuries, because Lively is not coming back till maybe April. I mean, we saw him in Dallas. He had a boot. I mean, he had a cast on his foot. Like, he's not coming back anytime soon. So, to me, this is a very short-sighted deal. And this is, to me, lends to be something personal. Like, maybe between Luka's stubbornness to say, listen, man, you see my numbers. I ain't the problem. And we can all understand that. Go ahead, John.
Well, there's a couple stories out there, and again, I'm not sure what's out there just in terms of like the conditioning and this and that, and maybe things have gotten to a point where I feel like there's got to be something that goes a little bit deeper than just the basketball decisions. Because, Bobby, I don't think there's any point in rationalizing the basketball argument here if that wasn't really what factored into the trade.
Yeah, no, I agree with you that you can't.
This to me is they were getting out of the Luka business for one reason or another, and something tipped. And I'm not going conspiracy theory that there's some story that's going to come out after the fact that he's done something off the court that he's going to have to deal with. Nothing like that. But there's a report out there that his weight's ballooned while he's out there. And I don't know how many people have seen him in his recovery here. I saw one story said, people are saying he's up to, I don't know if this was attached to the McMahon story or not, 250, 260, 270, like way past what would be the point of acceptable.
Dallas, John, he looked like he had some khakis on. He did not
and
look
he looked
like
normal.
We John, we all can look. We've seen beefy
you can see it.
Luka. We've seen beefy Luka before. Yes, we've seen Luka with a couple of cheeseburgers before. This was not the guy. I saw him. I didn't look and go, damn, he's oh boy, he's going to need a conditioning program to come back to the court. Like he looked slim. He looked like he just,
So that's why
So
I don't get it.
I don't get it.
Something's there. All right, we'll break down a little bit more. Sherrod's going to have to bounce in a minute or two. We've got to pay some bills real quick before we do. So we will let you know right now. We've got Prize Picks here, and if you're not in on the action, you should be right now with Prize Picks. Great time to get going a week ahead of the big game. Prize Picks, best place to get to place a real money sports action. Over 10 million members. Pick more or less, at least 2 players shot up to win 1,000 times your cash. It is that easy. Super fun, super easy. And if you see the code on the screen, that's all you have to do is sign up and play 5, get 50 instantly in your account. You do not even have to win. Use that code CLNS again. Download that app, play 5, get 50 instantly into your account. And what better way to get going with it than this? It's basically a free game pick for the big game. Patrick Mahomes, 0.5 passing yards. You pick more, that's a freebie, that's a free square, and an easier way to make good here and earn your money. So again, check it out. Prize Picks. Sign up today. New users, play 5, get 50 instantly in your account. We did lose Gary. I mean, we lost Sherrod. Gary is still here with some more thoughts here on the trade. And again, once you get past the initial shock value of it, I don't want to put you out there, Gary, and have you say something you haven't heard from someone directly, or do you have any theories beyond just simply an owner getting cold feet or a rational basketball decision? Do you have any, like, what are we missing here? What's the missing piece?
I think it's a combination of one, probably how well they've played without Luka. And I think those 3 victories over Oklahoma City without Luka this year, right? The number 1 team. So they're putting a lot of confidence in Kyrie Irving. Kyrie has been a model citizen since he's been in Dallas. He's kind of cleaned up his act. So maybe those wins, in addition to do we want to pay him $350 million? And is he going to either opt out? Is he going to, and then obviously Luka has his ways of feeling about how he feels. If he doesn't think he needs to get in great shape, then that could be an issue with management also. It could be just like, hey, we've tried to tell this guy, lose that 20 pounds, get more muscular, get more cut. You're going to last longer in this league. Okay, I got you. Then like some guys, they go back to Slovenia. He's eating his mother's cooking. He's hanging out. All of a sudden he comes back and it's like, oh man, he started like at the end of the season, he was great shape at the finals, and he comes back for camp and he's, I got a sore calf and my hamstrings are a little tight. So I think it might've been a philosophical difference between management and Luka and his team, because every guy who's as big as Luka has a team, right? And then also I think how well they played without Luka. And then in terms of defense. Now, Nico Harris is trying to build a team that's relied on defense, and you've got Kyrie as your front guy. Okay, but Kyrie is at least trying. That back court, the front court with Gafford, with Lively. Lively's a key piece here. If he comes back, yeah, they'll be much better. I'm a big Lively guy, right? And I'm a big Gafford guy. He basically kept the Mavericks in the game most of the time last week when the Celtics pulled away. I mean, because they couldn't do anything they had nothing to do with, they couldn't do anything with Gafford. But is that a championship team? No. But I think it might be a money-saving proposition. I think it might be a situation where it was just philosophical differences. And you know what, Luka, we're going to send you, you're LA guy. You seem like you want to be a star. We'll send you over there. We'll get a guy here that works hard. And quite honestly, and AD, is that the guy? Banking on AD long term is, to me, the tough part, because 65 games is as best you're going to get out of AD to me. Like that's a maximum situation. And now at 32, 33, 34, it's going to slow down. And you're going to have another emerging star around him. You've traded that guy. So I'm not sure. Trading 25 for 32 is, that's a lot.
Yeah, you're shortening your window big time, especially if you think Luka could play another 5-10 years at the highest level here. So that's the tough part to wrap your head around too, from the basketball perspective. And again, John, I agree. You can't trade Luka. I get that. That's the part that's really the problem here. But the return, to me, again, you're talking about Luka being second through sixth best player in the league, depending on where you have him. And Davis is 8th, 9th, 10th. It's not a massive drop off overall. And it's not like Davis is some player who's limited offensively, or you're not going to get a massive amount of production from on that end. The availability is the question for sure, Gary. But defensively, you're talking about one of the 10 best players in the league.
Oh man.
That's a tough one.
That ain't right. That's not right. Yeah, boy. That's a tough one. That's a tough one.
That's a tough one.
So
no, I get it. Yeah.
I look at the championship, teams this year. Obviously, Boston, New York, Cleveland, whoever you want to throw in there. The teams out west: Denver, Oklahoma City, Dallas, still in that mix. And if Kyrie's healthy, if Clay gets closer to the Clay we're used to seeing, and that's a big question now too, obviously, given where he is in his career. Davis stays healthy down the stretch. You got Washington, you got Gafford. The lively thing's a big factor come playoff time, Gary. But if that group comes together this year, or maybe it is next year, Oklahoma City's worried about that front court, John. Denver, I don't have a huge amount of faith of where they are.
Bobby, nobody's again. Everything.
I'm just rationalizing the return, John.
No, I get it, but it's like you know me. I hate if. I like unless. Like,
but this is what irritates me, John.
If you're hinging things on if, like this happens, and if that happens, and if that happens, and if this thing happens, and all of it happens, we're gonna be good. I like unless this happens, we'll be fine. Unless this bad thing happens. Dallas is still on up. Who knows how it's going to work? Maybe this makes you marginal. You went to the finals with this team last year. How much better is it going to get? Like, okay, you got back to the finals. Like, maybe, I don't know. I don't see them as clearly separating from the pack. Maybe they're 5% better on the court overall with this product, but like this team got to the finals. You have some other pieces there. Whether it makes you better or not, again, I don't think has anything to do with what makes it a bad trade. People are going to take a victory lap if the Mavericks look a little better on the court. And as Gary said, they've played better without Luka. That's less the point. The point is this is a
trade's bad because you traded Luka.
It's an asset. It's what you traded and what you got, considering the going rate.
That's where I'm going to disagree with you, John.
Miles Bridges, Rudy Gobert are getting bigger returns. I mean,
that's not a bigger return than Anthony Davis just because you got some extra picks. And it's a different trade environment now too, because there's limitations on teams who could get involved.
It's a long-term deal for LA, and maybe a short-term improvement for Dallas. Maybe.
Right.
But no value. Yeah.
To me, like, look at the Lakers. Okay, so Rob Pelinka, who is taken a lot of criticism for his lack of activity, for some of the moves, of bringing in Westbrook.
Gary, do you think the Lakers wanted to give up Anthony Davis?
For Luka, hell yes.
I think the Lakers.
Oh my God, I think they're
like, okay.
I think they're like,
think about it.
Thank you, Anthony. You gave us the bubble championship.
Yeah. Good. Immediately put it on hold. Everybody laughed. And then they picked up the phone and like, yeah, I think we could do that. But they couldn't do this trade fast enough, Bobby.
Yeah, they pay for a spaceship to take them to Dallas. Yeah, like, are you serious? Like, yeah, like totally. I think, one, the Lakers franchise is built on superstardom. Kareem, Magic, then the lean years when Magic retired, then they got Kobe and Shaq, then it was Kobe by himself, and then those lean years when they got all those lottery picks they botched, the Brandon Ingrams and the D'Angelo Russells and Julius Randles where they were supposed to be. Then they got LeBron and AD. Now, quite honestly, you've got your next generational star who's only 26, so he's got 10 plus years to go in LA. And we all know Luka likes the spotlight. So what? He's going to be a Hollywood guy. Yes. The Lakers are like, because let's be honest, Bobby, they weren't really winning at a high level with AD. Last year, he played in 70 games, and they lost in the first round. Like
Hey, Jokic. I mean, this, yeah.
Yeah, but Laker fans are like, this was nice. Thank you,
Yeah.
Anthony. But Luka, yes, the Lakers are seeking a superstar, and all they gave up was a 32-year-old Anthony Davis, a first-round pick in 2029. Who knows who that's going to be? And then Max Christie, who was a second-round pick, who ended up being a solid piece. He might even start for them over like Spencer Dinwiddie when he gets there and gets settled. Who knows? He might be a starter for them eventually, or even now.
He
So
was
that's a
starting for
nice
LA
piece.
too.
But because I mean he took 2-3 years to develop, right? So to me, if that's all you're giving up, you're not giving up any of your young if you had given up AD, Dalton Connect, like Austin Reeves, okay, you're giving up 2 starters then that's different. They gave up basically a starter and a prospect and a pick for Luka. Luka, for Christ's sake. Like, this is insane to me. Like,
it's insane.
We all love AD. Like, when AD is one of those players, when he's right, but he ain't always right. In a time where at 30 plus in the NBA, your clock starts to tick. Not everybody is LeBron and Steph. Everybody can't play till 39. And it's like, AD, do you think, Bobby, honestly, do you think AD will play 5 more years in the league?
Bobby, did we lose you?
I think Bobby is frozen.
I'm going to remove him while we wait for Bobby to unfreeze because I want to follow up on that. And we're going to do the thing that's going to – this is where we lose viewers. We're going to talk about whether the Celtics should have and could have and might have gotten involved here and what that might have looked like. We'll talk about that. And this is where I get everybody to hate me on the show, and that's fine. Real quick, we want to let you know about another one of our sponsors here on the Garden Report, and that, of course, is Game Time. And boy – do you know what the next home game the Celtics play is? Yeah, it's against Dallas here. Let's hear from Game Time.
This episode is also powered by Game Time, the best place to get tickets to the games, events, and concerts you want to see. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Game Time is filled with terrific features like all-in pricing, so you know exactly how much you're paying. No surprise fees at checkout. You also get panoramic views from your seats in the app, so you know exactly what you'll be looking at before you buy. Plus a lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Once again, download that Game Time app, create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. What time is it? It's Game Time.
And here it is. When the Celtics return home here next week, they got a date with who? The Dallas Mavericks. That's right. We've got Philly. We've got Cleveland. That's a big one. And then Dallas. What are you going to get here? I don't know if Anthony Davis is there, but you're getting the retooled Dallas Mavericks, who are here to prove that Bobby was right. And this was a good trade. If you want to get in now. There's some pretty good seats available, as you can see here on the app. Download that Game Time app, create an account, use code CLNS. And yeah, you can get pretty close to the action. Some pretty good deals here to get in and check out the retooled, revamped, championship contending Dallas Mavericks here at the TD Garden and NBA Finals rematch. So that's fun if you just want to go. But you want to go troll Kyrie a little bit, that's fine. It's not nearly as fun without Luka. But again, get in on the action with Game Time. Download the app. Code CLNS, $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. So I'll ask you guys this. Let's say they shopped it, and let's say it was out there, because look, who doesn't play the what if game, right? This is what you do. Such and such is available. Whether or not you want to do it or not, you're always going to wonder, oh, Could we get him over here? So let me ask you, he goes on the market right now, Gary Washburn, and this trade doesn't happen. We'll rewind 12 hours. And instead, the tweet is the Dallas Mavericks have been informed, that Luka wants out and they're going to trade him by this deadline. And every team scrambles to put forth their best offer. Do you expect Brad is picking up that phone? And what do you expect Brad is saying?
Well, that's an interesting question. I don't know. The fantasy, if this happens, is pairing Tatum and Luka, right? So I think if you're Brad, if you were like, okay, we need to make this happen, first you have to start with Jaylen and Derek, and that's for starters. And then I don't know if the Celtics have any other prospect. Like they don't really have any. Peyton's probably their rising guy that you could throw into a deal where he'd be a deal sweetener. Like, it's like coffee, makes it a little more sweetener. Like, I think how the Lakers threw Max Christie, like, hey, yeah, give us that guy. Okay. So I think it would probably be those three, and three probably first round picks would be, to me, what it would probably take. So now you're taking away your point guard, you're taking away your starting small forward, and you're pairing Luka and Tatum. I don't think Brad would want to do that. I think if that was the case, that's what it would take. It would have to be starters, 3 veteran players, and then probably 3 draft.
Unless it's Tatum. Unless it's Tatum.
Unless you're like, you know what? We're just going to take this chance and we're going to move star for star and just see what happens here. But that's happens.
That's the only other way. Otherwise, you've got your entire roster. It doesn't make sense. It probably makes you worse in either way, but it's an interesting conversation.
Yeah, and of course you get the new trade restrictions now too, so it would have to be Jaylen for Luka straight up or Tatum for Luka straight up. So So it probably couldn't happen. You're not going to trade Tatum for Luka. Jaylen, this is keep going back to the Davis thing. If you're Dallas, you're taking Anthony Davis over Jaylen Brown straight up in a trade like this, and then whatever the picks would have been. Celtics actually don't have a ton of picks long term, maybe like 3 or 4 that they could throw in here after the holiday trade. So you do Brown, right? If it was Brown for Luka, you do it. If it's Tatum,
the chat
for Luka,
does not. I'm very.
I mean,
careful.
you have
I'm not even going to give my opinion, Bobby, because I'll light this place on fire if I do. And so I'm just not going to do it. But the chat has decided that even Gary just laid it out pretty clear. You'd have to do Jaylen plus this, plus this, plus that to get it done. Maybe not, considering only AD plus a pick got it done. So maybe Jaylen straight up with a pick gets it done. But it's funny that Gary's mind initially went to actual value in an auction format where he was put out to the world. What would you have to do to beat other teams' offers? It's probably Jaylen and stuff, but the entire chat is like, if somebody even suggests Jaylen for Luka straight up, they're crazy. Okay, I know what level of dialogue we're having here. Like, Celtics fans don't want to hear it and don't want to have it. That's fine. But yes, that's what it would take. You were going to do
Jaylen for Durant a couple of years ago, so you're doing Jaylen for Luka.
I was going to do it a couple of weeks ago. Yeah.
And so that's it. When I start thinking about in this new trade environment, like what could you get for Luka if you shop them league wide? You could probably get Durant, but Durant's 35 now. He's at a different phase of his career.
37. Like, I think that's a minimum.
Yeah. I know. I'm kidding.
Bobby,
I'm kidding.
I think minimum. I just said before, I think there's 4 or 5 guys you would move, like Wemby, SGA, Anthony Edwards. Like, I think there's just a small handful of guys you would move.
I wonder what Minnesota would have said if they called about Edwards.
Exactly. Anthony Edwards. Now, that's an interesting one, Bobby, because to me, that's somebody who is as much as he produces, they're not having a great year. Maybe he could be the issue. To me, that I just think there's not too many guys you trade Luka for. And I think this will be one of those deals, like it or not, that makes Nico Harrison's reputation as a GM He'll go down in the Billy King files as what the hell did you just gave the Celtics 5 Eastern Conference appearances and a championship when you made that deal for Pearson Garnett. Or, you know, I think they'll just be, I think they'll just be, it probably isn't going to turn out well because now, you know, AD is a guy and you guys will tell me, is Anthony Davis your number one? Is he a franchise player? Like the number one? He never took that mantle from LeBron. LeBron for years tried to give it to him. It's AD's team. He tried to be the number 2 guy, and he still is not the number 2 guy. LeBron is still the number 1 option on that team. We saw it last night at the Garden where he just put on a show. Like, is AD the type of guy who can be your number 1 franchise option? And maybe in New Orleans he was, but they weren't as successful. The Lakers, he never took that mantle from LeBron. And now at 32, can he be that guy? Because that's the guy you're going to need to make this trade work, because Kyrie's 32, about to be 33, and you don't have any super like Derek Lively, like you don't have that guy.
Yeah. AD at 24 or 25, then you can start to make a case. Absolutely a top 3, 4, 5-ish asset. When the Celtics were talking about adding him to the mix here, that's what you were adding. You're adding one of the top players in the NBA, no question about it. One that needed someone else. AD is not going to be alpha. He needs a scorer alongside him too, someone playing on the perimeter. But you wanted to get that kind of the Shaq Kobe, the big man, you know, kind of whatever, duo in place to get that done. He needs that for sure. He's not the guy who's out there going to do it all by himself. It's the 32 years old aspect of things, and people who are discounting that are insane. As Gary said earlier, everyone's not LeBron. Look at what happened with friggin' let's cross sports. Look at the New York Jets here thinking, oh, if Tom Brady can do it, Aaron Rodgers must be able to. No, it doesn't work that way. I understand, but like that's also quarterbacks who age a little bit better. You can't, it's like the amount of people who do this sort of stuff and continue better, particularly bigs, it doesn't work that way. You know, like it catches up with you.
I'm curious to see what it's going to look like. I know Harrison's out. This is what confuses me a little bit too. Harrison being out,
and we're gonna wrap in a little bit here too. Yep. Go ahead, Bobby.
Like it's this basketball sense, and it's so obvious because it's not obvious, John, because of the age, and obviously Clay and Kyrie are at a different point in their careers too. So it's not like they're going to be able to do the LeBron frontman thing alongside Davis here either. I am a Davis guy. I do think, you know, Gary mentioned the street clothes thing earlier and some of this perception that's been attached to him. I think he's a much better player than fans generally give him credit for at this point in his career. And I know the championship was 5 years ago at this point, but he was the central force in that run for LA. And at times over the last couple of years, so it's going to have to all come together here. It's not like he's going to take the ball and score 30 points a game and drive them to the promised land here. They're going to need Kyrie being Kyrie. They're going to need Clay being Clay. And that's a lot of ifs, as you mentioned earlier. But defensively, to me, the size in their front court, you look at the players that they're going to have once Lively does come back, Gary. I see a little bit what they're doing here. I see the vision that they have. Obviously, you're moving off Luka, not for basketball reasons, but for some other reason here, whether it's the money, whether it's his commitment or weight, whatever you want us to say here. But to me, the only thing I'm going to defend is the return, because I do believe in Davis at that level. I do believe in this massive front court that they're building here compared to Cleveland, what they're doing out there. But there are a lot of ifs right now, and that has to concern you. They were ifs with Luka too, but the one thing you could say about Luka, Gary, is that any given series, even that one to some degree, people pick past on that, right? You could imagine him carrying that team 2-4 wins in a playoff series against basically anyone. And now you don't have that. Like you're saying Kyrie needs to play at his highest possible level. Clay, who is really past his prime at this point, has to play at his highest possible level. And then Davis, of course, has to be available, aggressive, and the best version of himself. So I'm
Hello?
You got me? You got me, Gary?
I can hear you, Bobby.
Sorry,
Yeah,
we had a
I
couple.
was saying I'm confused.
Bobby, time. You're just a second because you were a little jammed up. If you go again, just okay. Sorry, we got a little crossed up there, and Gary got left alone. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a lot of ifs here from the basketball perspective, and it is confusing to hear Harrison talk about this like it's this stroke of genius or that they're, building something from a basketball standpoint that people don't understand. What we need the answer for, Gary, is why they decided they don't want to be in the Luka business anymore. And maybe there's some allusion to his weight or his commitment or even interpersonal stuff here that might have gone on. But that's the real question. It's not what are you doing with Davis? It's why couldn't this work with Luka? Because you don't trade Luka, and that's what I'm gonna give everybody here is that you just can't do that.
No, I mean, I feel like there's very few guys in this league who give you that factor. What I mean by that is when it was like in John, remember, it was like when Jordan had the ball in his hands, it was like, oh shit, especially he's playing against your team. Luka on certain nights, remember that Western Conference Final game against Minnesota where he was talking to somebody, remember Snoop Dogg was at the game and he was talking to whoever was behind Snoop Dogg, and he was just literally like, oh, okay, you got something to say, huh? Like, and he was going at like, Luka can score 50 without losing any sleep. Luka can be that guy that can just carry your team, that can just not miss. And that's intangible. You cannot teach those things. That is like, to me, what makes him a franchise player. Just look at what the Sacramento Kings did, Bobby. They skipped over Trey and Luka to take Marvin Bagley Jr. Okay, like if you're talking about a fireable offense where Vlade Divac did that, like the Kings missed on both. Every team was, because obviously you remember, Bobby, when he came out, we had no idea how good he was going to be. No one knew about this guy. He was kind of a mystery, and we've had mysteries before. I remember Dante Exum was that guy that there was people like, oh, he could be a real star, and he ended up being a guy who could never stay healthy. And remember, will the Celtics take Marcus Smart or Dante Exum? And obviously it worked out for them. They took Smart because Exum got taken.
Then you had Dragan Bender.
Yeah, Dragan Bender. Okay, like we all thought, hey, Dragan Bender is going to be a difference maker in this league. There's always been guys like that. And Luka was the one who probably resurrected our faith in a lot of European prospects, because for a while there was a lot of guys who just slipped, failed, were busts, or were okay players, Bargnanis and those guys who ended up being like, he's okay, but my goodness, there was a lot of hype. And Luka now made everyone pay attention to anyone from overseas that was coming into the draft, like he could be the next Luka. So I just think when you have that type of talent, and you've got to just understand the warts that come with it. And obviously, like you said, it was probably a personal thing. It was a Luka thing. It was a situation where the Mavericks were like, maybe the ownership said, I'm not paying this guy $350 million, and he's not in supreme shape. And I want to, and maybe Nico Harrison said, listen, we don't have to pay him that. We can pay Davis the $60 million over, because I think
that's a big factor here.
3 years, 180 extension. Okay. He said, I'm sure he went to the ownership and said, listen, we can pay 3 years, 180 as opposed to 5 years, 350. And then we can work on finding that next generational talent over the draft, maybe through a trade, whatever, that we can find that guy that can be the next quote unquote Luka, not exactly, but that we can find that guy and you could save yourself $150 million. And I think that probably played into it, because if you're Mark Cuban, who's no longer the owner, Mark Cuban does not do this deal. I'm sure Mark Cuban is like shaking his head, wondering what the hell's going on. What's
There's
going
no
on with
way
my
he does
team?
it.
Yeah, he loved Luka.
But to go back to the Cuban era, you had Porzingis and Luka together. For whatever reason, that didn't work. You move on from Porzingis, maybe to placate Luka. You have Jalen Brunson there. You have the opportunity to make that Luka Brunson thing work, and you move on from Brunson. So you had all these pieces. You had this Porzingis, Luka, Brunson core, and then you make all these other moves, trading picks and whatever else, bringing in Washington. You move off Grant. You make all these different moves to try to make it work around Luka, even the Kyrie thing. And now you're just like, well, we'll roll forward with Davis and Kyrie. That's what we're doing here. It doesn't have a long term. Even to your point, Gary, maybe you can go out and find Luka in another. Why do that when you already have Luka? And I get he's not perfect. I get he has a lot of words, and they're probably even worse than we can understand right now if they were willing to do this.
Yeah.
But he's 25, right? I mean, 28, he's a different person. 30, he's a different person. And you have that whole runway with him. And I think it is kind of hard to wrap your head around the financial reality here, John, like with new ownership, with new cap restrictions. You're really stuck at a certain point in how you're building your roster. But
this is why
I'm not going to do like him.
Yeah, that's why I'm not going to do the, well, this guy in the past got this. It's a new world. The economics are totally different, and people value assets more nowadays than even a year ago, 2 years ago, because of the cap realities and how punitive
you can only
it can
compare
be and how difficult it is.
Trade.
So now I think you're going to see more of these types of deals where before it was like, oh, screw it, I'll pay this guy because what am I going to do? Not have him? And now people are going to be a lot more selective about who they're giving these super maxes, the Julius Randle, type players who are like, well, shit, they made an all NBA team and now I got to super max him to keep him. What am I going to do? Get rid of him? Yeah, the answer is now probably get rid of him. So Dallas reached this conclusion with a player who's far beyond that level, clearly deserving of that, but just deciding I don't want to invest my money in that for whatever reason that they decided. So it's a different thinking. And so I wouldn't be shocked if we see more trades that are surprising, like, holy crap, they don't want to, because it's so much money and it really becomes you hand your franchise over to this person if you pay them. So I'm curious how that's going to play out in the future. I still think it's a bad return because teams are going to line up. Teams wait their entire lives to line up to get a player like Luka Doncic. He's better right now than probably any player a dozen NBA franchises have ever had in their history on their team. So they don't come around often. They could have gotten more. It is what it is. But we are going to wrap. We've kept Gary here long enough, but we're thrilled to have had him on here. If you want to catch the audio version of this podcast, we're going to double it up. It's both on the Garden Report feed and over on the Big Three podcast. And if you don't know about the Big Three podcast, shame on you. It's Gary Washburn, Sherrod Blakely, obviously, who we just heard from earlier, and Kwani Lunis, one of the best basketball podcasts, not just talking Celtics matters, but all matters. Really fun listen. You guys should subscribe today. In fact, everybody who's here, subscribe now. I'll wait. Okay. Subscribe, rate, and review the Big Three podcast, the audio version. You can also catch it on the CLNS Media Network over on our YouTube channel. Subscribe to those channels as well, Celtics All Access and our main channel for all sorts of Celtics content. Before we go, I will let everybody know we have more stuff coming on today. We got to do some football programming for Super Bowl preview. We're going to be traveling out to the Super Bowl as well, so we're going to have coverage from you all week long. And we got a game. So Celtics play. Bobby or Gary, are you in Philly right now? Are you home?
No, I'm home.
You're home. That's why you get to wear your Celtics green, because you don't have to act like you're not a journalist out there.
It's a Boston Globe. Yeah, you know me, John. I'm a big green teamer.
Yeah. No, I'm a Berkeley guy right there with you, by the way, Gary. I don't know if you knew that. I was born out there.
Awesome.
Yeah. So it's you and me versus the Cuse guys, Bobby and Sherrod over there.
Yeah,
but again, definitely subscribe to the Big Three
Big
podcast.
win last night.
Thank you, Pete. That's what I like to see. And check that out. It's twice weekly on the CLNS Media Network and over on their feed as well. And of course, catch everything that Gary Washburn writes over on the Boston Globe. And if you aren't doing that, you're missing out on a lot of great basketball insight. I'm sure Gary's going to do some digging and find the scoop, figure out exactly what went on here. As the dust still settles, it is incredible that we're 12 hours or so after that this happened, and I don't think it makes any more sense to anybody. We have no more explanations. It might be as simple as all of the stuff.
John,
that we've
everyone
discussed here,
thought Shams got hacked.
That's one of the funniest tweets I saw is, if you're Nico Harrison right now, how does it feel knowing that the entire social media world chose to believe that Shams was hacked rather than you would have made this trade, which is crazy to me. Like, if you're wondering, like, what do people think? And you walked out there and everyone's like, nah, this can't be real. That can't give you a lot of confidence right out of the gate. I'm going to liken this to one more thing before we go. For Boston sports fans, not just basketball fans, it smacks a little bit. And again, if you, from a Dallas Mavericks perspective, it smacks a little bit of the Nomar Garciaparra trade in 2004, which made no sense for the return that you got back. I'm not comparing Nomar to Luka, and in fact, he was probably on the downswing, but you traded a superstar and a franchise cornerstone for spare parts. And we're talking Orlando Cabrera and Doug Minkiewicz, and that made no sense to anybody, and it resulted in a World Series. So let's just say the Mavericks do. I think we can all agree long-term this didn't make sense, doesn't make sense from an asset management standpoint. But if they somehow sneak a single title out of this, you start to ask, maybe it was worth it. So again, they can do a lot right by doing something in the very, very short term. Long term, it's going to be difficult to reconcile this, I think, for Mavericks fans. And I saw something today, and this was as of 3 hours ago, 700,000 people unfollowed the Dallas Mavericks Instagram account. That should give you a little insight into what people are feeling in Dallas right now, and they are apoplectic. They don't understand it. We've gone through this before here in Boston. Mookie Betts, that stings. That cost the Red Sox a ton of fans, and even Bruins fans watched us trade away Tyler Seguin and Joe Thornton for lesser returns. Again, none of these guys are on Luka's level. Mookie is close. But you see stars go away and you look at the return coming back and you're like, I don't get it. So again, this one's going to hurt. I think it's going to hurt Mavericks fans for a little bit of time. And it's really going to hurt if Luka decides to motivate, get in shape, Gary, get on that vegan diet and start to crush it in LA for the next 10 years with the entire spotlight of the world on him, which I think is entirely possible here. So again, it's fun. It's going to continue to be fun, but God bless the NBA for stuff like this happening. That's what makes it one of the best league to follow in the world. This stuff.
Lakers, Mavs, April 9th.
Yeah, it's never not interesting. So thank you guys out there for joining us on a kind of weird off-time Garden Report. We're back later. Thank you to Gary Washburn for jumping on the show to let his voice be heard. Thank you to Sherrod Blakely, of course. And thank you to all of you guys jumping in and watching and commenting and keeping us honest and letting us know that our takes stink. We do appreciate you guys. We will see you later tonight, post-game show, Celtics versus the Sixers in Philly. Bobby and Noah are down in Philly. They'll be covering the game from there. Thanks, everybody.
No one's sneaking a vegan brownie by me, I'll tell you
Okay,
that.
you know what, John? We're going to do it.
You have to feel that way too, Bobby.
I have to feel that way.
Yeah.
Fly out over and make Luke your first center.
Bobby, we gave you Luke hour early. We're not going to end this on a damn conversation about Luke